A distinct sound echoes when a human heart breaks, and only you can perceive it, akin to the swift snap of a piano key beneath a shut cover. That particular morning in the kitchen, Emily sauntered past me, her bare feet on the floor, one half toast dangling from her mouth, while her gaze remained transfixed upon her phone, as if it held her next vital sign. I lingered near the coffee machine, observing her furtively with a sidelong glance. I uttered her name twice, yet she remained unmoved, as if I were nothing more than a wall to her. For 2 months now, she has been gradually fading away, though not entirely. Initially, it was her laughter that vanished. Then the warm, good-morning kisses ceased. A palpable tension ensued between us, forming an invisible barrier like a moat. When Emily smiled, her eyes no longer crinkled with mirth. They appeared as a mask she had been coerced to wear. The most painful aspect? I feigned oblivion. One can only inquire, "Is everything all right?" So many times before it renders one pitiful. On a weekday evening, unlike in movies where betrayal unfolds during a stormy Friday, I opened the passenger side of her car, not to pry, but to bring in groceries, since she was too exhausted to assist. Her belongings had scattered across the seat, including her wallet, receipts, and an item I'd never encountered before, a gold bracelet with men's engraved on its edge for J always E. This discovery struck me like a discordant note in an otherwise familiar melody, just slightly off-key enough to tug at something deep inside. I stood there, transfixed. My hands didn't quiver. What I recall most is my body's unexpected composure. Instead, my thoughts narrowed into a focused point, harsh and chilling. I carefully restored everything to its original place. I took my time, brought the groceries inside. She was on the couch, texting, grinning, acknowledging me with nods. Her eyes never left that screen. I didn't inquire about the bracelet. I waited. I strategized. The following day, I informed her I had an early work schedule. I did not. Dear friends, if you enjoy this story, please like and subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us to make more videos like this for you. I traveled 5 blocks, parking close to a park bench facing our house's backyard. From this vantage point, I had an unobstructed view through the fence and patiently waited. 1 hour elapsed, then 2. At 9:23 a.m., a car entered the driveway, a new, sleek gray BMW. The man who emerged was athletic, clad in a black sweater with a neatly trimmed beard. He held a takeout bag as if he knew our kitchen layout better than I did. She stepped out, barefoot once more, flashing the same warm, lipstick-stained smile she used to offer me when we first met. She lifted herself onto him and kissed him. Not a casual peck or friendly greeting, but a deliberate, intimate kiss with her hand on the back of his neck and her body pressed against him. I didn't feel anger. Instead, I felt understanding. Everything fell into place now. The chilly behavior, the frequent girl getaways, the locked phone, the sudden fancy attire for errands, the evolving shade of her lipstick from soft pink to bold red. I allowed them to enter the house. I waited 12 minutes before starting my car and driving home. Behind his BMW, he parked, approached the front door, knocked once. The door swung open, revealing her with an expression of confusion and guilt. He stood behind her, clutching a coffee mug as if it was his property. Before she could utter a word, I interjected, "You claimed you were just friends." She blinked. Her mouth moved, but no sound emerged. Taking a deep breath, heart rate steady, I retreated, saying, "That's why I'm departing now." Then I walked away, traversing the street, past the mailbox, past our old memories, venturing into the unknown. The day of my departure was quiet. No shouting, no slammed doors, no spectacle, just the soft sound of a life detaching from another. For the first 2 nights, I stayed at a hotel, a modest place. No continental breakfast, no cordial greetings at reception. I didn't crave comfort. I sought solitude, genuine quietness, not the silence that once sat between us like a judge during dinner. I made no phone calls, didn't text my brother, hadn't informed my mother about my absence. Instead, I sat, contemplating the water stain on the ceiling, unsure if any emotion was stirring within me. Grief, rage, jealousy. I anticipated their arrival, but they never materialized. Instead, I felt something far more insidious: nothingness. Emily hadn't reached out that day or the next. The woman with whom I had shared a bed for 5 years didn't inquire about my whereabouts or confirm my survival. She was preoccupied with warming another man's coffee mug in the kitchen I had constructed myself. Yet, my story wasn't over. I wasn't going to disappear while she rewrote our tale as a fairy tale ending on Pinterest. So I returned, not to plead or argue, but to seek answers. Not for resolution, for understanding. The truth is, you don't require closure when you're being strangled. You need air. I waited until Sunday evening, knowing she'd be home. I parked 2 blocks away and approached the rest of the way as a stranger. She stood in the doorway, adorning the same robe I gifted her 2 Christmases prior, the one she found comforting. Her expression seemed taken aback or irritated, as if my arrival disrupted something private. Without extending an invitation, she leaned against the doorframe and folded her arms. "I assumed you desired solitude," she stated. "No, I came to see you fabricate a tale before my eyes." She sighed, rolling her eyes twice. "What is it that you require, Derek?" I asked directly. "Was it him?" I inquired, alluding to the suspicion lingering for some time. She did not deny it, or nod affirmatively. Instead, she bit the inside of her cheek and glanced beyond me. It was unforeseen, she eventually admitted. That phrase, as if love was an accident in the kitchen, as if she slipped and fell into his arms on the way to purchase groceries. I inquired about the duration. She hesitated before responding. "Too long." The silence served as her response, but she divulged a few months later. "And you plan to keep this from me?" I questioned further. She remained silent in response, blinked. No tears flowed. No remorse was shown. That's when I grasped a fact that still hurts. She didn't apologize, not in the slightest. I nodded, took a step back. "Do me a favor," I said. "What?" "When you finish feigning love, don't contact me." Turned and walked away once more. This time she made no attempt to halt me either. What they don't warn you about betrayal is its practicality. 2 days post our last confrontation on the doorstep, I found myself sifting through bank records and shared passwords, as if preparing for battle. I had to verify if she depleted our savings. She hadn't yet. But the transaction history spoke volumes. Expensive eateries I was never asked to join, bars in unfamiliar neighborhoods we never visited, Uber trips tracing a route from his workplace to destinations 2 towns away at 2 a.m. She wasn't even trying to conceal it anymore. The browser tab closed, and I gazed at the empty wall of the shabby apartment I had just agreed to rent. A solitary room, unadorned thus far except for a mattress on the ground and a fold-up chair from Home Depot. I had no complaints. It was mine. It harbored no spirits, nor any perfumed pillows bearing cliched expressions. Unexpectedly, she contacted me. "Can we talk?" Bereft of punctuation or affectation, I chose to disregard her message. Following this, a second text arrived. "You're complicating things unnecessarily." Complicating? I scrutinized that text as if it were inscribed in flames. "I'm making it difficult?" She had ignited the fuse. I stepped out of the blast zone's reach. An hour later, my brother Nate materialized with 2 bags of Taco Bell and a semi-full case of beer. He remained silent initially, merely depositing the food, settling in the chair, opening his can, and offering it to me. "My brother informed me after some time that I had seen her recently," he added, leaning against the wall. I raised my gaze. She had visited the store, with him. His jaw was clenched. "Did she notice you?" "Yes, she did." He smiled as if we were partaking in a secret joke. That strike resonated more than any words she could utter. Emily moved as if nothing transpired, as if she hadn't pierced 9 years of shared history with a serrated blade and sauntered away humming. "What transpired?" I inquired from him. Nate merely shrugged, remaining taciturn. He strolled nonchalantly past them, words unnecessary. His silence spoke volumes. That night, sleep eluded me. It wasn't due to her or even him. It was the recollections of countless trivial moments she had pilfered while gazing into my eyes that kept me awake. Birthday mornings, long drives, the way she'd weep during melancholic commercials, then cast furtive glances at me seeking solace. All a charade. And in those pre-dawn hours, lying on the sparse mattress of my barren apartment, I made a resolution. I wouldn't allow her to pen my conclusion. No more brooding, no more dissecting her messages like they were sacred texts. She had chosen her path. Now it was my turn to choose mine. The subsequent encounter with her was serendipitous. For nearly 2 weeks, I found myself standing amidst the cereal section at the grocery store, pondering if I enjoyed Raisin Bran or simply endured it. A laugh echoed behind me, distinct, practiced. Without needing to look, I knew who it was. Emily. And as expected, there he was too, James. I stole a glance over my shoulder, spotting her holding a basket instead of filling carts with me every Sunday morning like we used to. She wore a scarf I'd bought her on our anniversary trip to Vermont, something she claimed never to appreciate due to feeling constricted by them. But there she was, beaming like a debutante, radiating under the fluorescent lights. I was tempted to walk away, but remained resolute. I brushed past them, close enough for her to catch a whiff of the budget detergent from my new apartment and know without question that I was managing. She noticed me. Of course she did. Her smile faltered momentarily. The glow in her eyes waned slightly for a fleeting instant. James continued to talk unaware until he observed her facial expression alter. She remained motionless, neither pausing nor reacting, as if he were insignificant. 2 hours elapsed before the conversation resumed. Emily, can we discuss something? I didn't expect you to be here. Emily, you seemed different. Emily, are you all right? This last one caused me to chuckle. She inquired about my well-being as if she hadn't torched our home and then questioned whether the smoke affected my lungs. I left her on read, but she persisted. A day passed before she appeared again. Outside my apartment complex, not our house. She used the intercom as if we were young adults, and she was delivering takeout, whining to discuss trivial matters. I nearly ignored her call. However, I responded. Yes, I replied over static. I need to clarify, she replied. No. Pause. I made a mistake. No, Emily, it wasn't a mistake. You decided. She fell silent for a while. Then, may I enter? I should have ended the call. I should have walked away. Yet curiosity can be cruel. 42 seconds after I buzzed her in, the knock came. Opening the door, there she was, clad in jeans and a scarf, guarding herself with her phone. I didn't know how to respond. You lied? I intruded. Let's not make excuses, I said. She hesitated, opened her mouth, then finally admitted. At first, it meant nothing. I swear by God, I thought I just needed something. Different, I retreated. Her words stung like acid. Different? Was that what I was to you? A sofa you grew tired of? A playlist you skipped past? She shook her head, but it was too late. She didn't come here to apologize. She came because her illusion had a flaw. You seemed all right the other day, she murmured softly. You look like a stranger, I replied. Then I posed the question that had tormented me for weeks. Did you ever intend to tell me, or were you planning on smiling at breakfast while someone else undid your robe at night? It was then her expression twisted, not out of guilt, but furious. She uttered, You have no idea about being with someone who stopped recognizing you. Indeed, she said it. In my apartment, post her affair, I moved aside, gesturing towards the door. Leave. She seemed ready to speak more, but didn't. Once the door shut, the quietude felt like tranquility. Not emptiness, not solitude, merely tranquility. It was odd how rapidly a person transforms into a recollection. Even more peculiar when they're still living, still moving around with the same visage, the same voice. Only now you comprehend that none of it truly belonged to you. After Emily exited my apartment that night, there was no contact from her for almost a week. No messages, no unexpected visits, nothing. And for a while it was peaceful. Peaceful mornings, lengthy strolls, breathing unburdened by glances over the shoulder. My body finally synchronized with a part of my mind I hadn't known in years. But then came the email. No title, merely a PDF attachment and 2 sentences. Here is the draft agreement. If you prefer a change, let me know. I'll listen. This communication came from her lawyer. That was the actual conclusion. Not the argument, nor the bracelet, nor even the porch kiss. It was the impersonal tone in that email, cold and corporate, as if she were closing a business account instead of ending a marriage. Upon opening the PDF, I found it neat and efficient. She wanted to keep the house, proposed buying me out, and split the rest equally. No alimony, no protracted disputes. She was making things convenient for me. What angered me was how civil it all seemed. Deep within, I had expected a hint of sorrow, a sign that 9 years hadn't simply vanished as soon as James inserted his key into our lock. Instead, I didn't immediately respond or even fully read the message. Instead, I drove, not aimlessly this time. I returned home, now hers, where the front yard seemed unchanged, but there were subtle differences: rearranged flower pots and a new doormat reading "Good Vibes Only." The irony was almost amusing. She wasn't present, and her vehicle was absent, yet the lights were illuminated. I recognized the access code. It hadn't been altered. I knew I shouldn't have entered, but I did. I crossed the threshold into what seemed like an unauthorized intrusion of my past dwelling. The arrangement of items remained consistent, but it wasn't. A new throw blanket adorned the couch, not the worn-out one we squabbled over during movie nights. The photograph from Mexico was missing from the mantelpiece, replaced by a plant. In the kitchen, the mugs had been swapped. She preferred the chipped one from the flea market, yet it too was gone, likely discarded on the same day she deemed James worthy of the risk. I stood motionless in the center of the room, palms resting at my sides, anticipating a response: anger, sorrow, perhaps even sentimentality. Instead, what ensued was something chillier: relief. It had concluded, not hypothetically, but truly. This abode, this house, these walls were no longer mine, nor she, truthfully, or possibly never had been. I departed without disturbing anything. That evening, I revisited the PDF document. This time, I completed reading it and responded to her lawyer with two simple words: no adjustments. I decided she should have everything. I had already departed. A dwelling ceases to be a home when it's merely walls. Similarly, a woman's voice alters when her affection for you wanes, even if she continues addressing you by your name. In 2 days, I signed the divorce papers, not in a courtroom or at a table, but alone in my lawyer's office, with just a pen and the steady ticking of the clock on the wall as witnesses. I didn't summon anyone for company or testimony. Only myself was present, because if I could endure watching my wife fade away while standing beside me, I could handle a single signature. As I returned the envelope to my lawyer, she offered me a look, a soft, rehearsed one that attorneys likely reserve for the newly heartbroken men they encounter frequently. I valued her silence. The weather was overcast but not raining. One of those ambiguous days, carrying an unspoken tension. Emily didn't reach out, neither by call nor text. Instead, it was James who did, surprising me. The message came via Facebook, unexpected, as if we were adolescents or former work colleagues. James Langford was the sender. "Hey, can we talk?" I scrutinized the message for a full minute. Talk? Talk? This was the same man who had the audacity to sleep in my house, but not the courage to confront me when the door opened that morning. And now he wanted to converse? I responded with exactly what crossed my mind. "You've said enough. Don't bother me again." He didn't retort. The message lingered, leaving a subdued burden within me, not anger, merely this heavy sensation. Why now? What did he want? Was it guilt? Redemption? Had Emily discarded him already and sought to clarify matters? The notion that she could have moved on so swiftly was a bitter form of humor, like destroying a house for temporary warmth. That evening, I found myself on the balcony of my new dwelling, a cheap whiskey bottle clutched tightly, overlooking an ongoing world that seemingly overlooked me. Distantly, cars hummed, and a dog yelped from afar. Beneath the mundane bustle of lives unaltered by internal turmoil, my phone glowed. "Emily, this wasn't a question." I hesitated, reflecting on the hasty decisions I made. I shouldn't have filed for divorce. I missed you. I swore. The atmosphere seemed to momentarily halt. The message perplexed me, scrutinized for hidden meanings or traps. Only 6 days had elapsed since the lawyer sent her agreement. It had changed. What had fractured? Had James succumbed to pressure? Had the harsh realization of losing our safety net finally struck her? I remained silent, waiting for a response, face to face, unfiltered. So, the following morning, I texted her. 1 coffee, 1 hour. No deceit. Her affirmative reply arrived swiftly. We convened at a quaint downtown cafe, uncertain of what awaited us. Impersonal setting, no recollections tied to it, no pictures of us hidden away, only stone walls, cold metal chairs, and a pungent aroma of scorched coffee. She arrived belatedly as usual. Emily was never late before. However, she seemed to be running on time now, wearing sunglasses despite the gloomy weather, clutching her phone as if it were a lifeline. Upon noticing me, she offered that familiar half-smile, a symbol of love previously, but now representing a demand. She sat silently in front of me without uttering a word. The air was heavy, not uncomfortable, rather dense, like an incoming wave. Eventually, she broke the silence. "I didn't think you would agree." I almost didn't reply. She removed her sunglasses, revealing eyes that appeared worn and darker than I recalled. Less makeup was applied, less attempt at perfection. Perhaps it was intentional, a desire to look damaged. She confessed her longing for me. I remained indifferent. "You missed the life I offered you, not the same thing," I responded. Her lips quivered slightly. However, I doubted its authenticity. She could summon tears with ease, much like flipping a light switch. "I made a mistake, Derek." I asserted my presence. She flinched. It wasn't intentional, this turn of events. It began gradually. There was no need to describe the incline to the man at the bottom of it. This silenced her. She looked away, fidgeting with her ring. She continued wearing it. That was surprising. She exchanged our marriage for a month of motel solace with a man who didn't value me enough to meet my gaze and still adorned the ring as if it held significance. "James and I, it wasn't what I had imagined," she said. I leaned back. "Did you think he would rescue you?" She hesitated. "I thought he saw me." This hit harder than anticipated, because I recalled all the nights when I did see her, crying over work, unable to bear the silence after her father passed, whispering apprehensions about aging without purpose into her pillow. I had guarded each of those moments with care and quietness, like a priest with confession. Now I found myself sitting opposite her, a stranger she betrayed herself with. She whispered, "I don't love him." I nodded, agreeing. "I believe you," I replied. Her eyes showed a glimmer of hope. But then I told her, "It doesn't change anything." The atmosphere between us became tense. "Derek," she pleaded. But no, I insisted. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You orchestrated a betrayal. You lied, you sneaked around, and you slept with someone in the house I painted for you. That's not a mistake. That's a decision." Tears welled up in her eyes, genuine ones. For a moment, the old part of me, the husband, felt a pang, wanting to comfort her. But that part was buried, silent, dead. "Don't you forgive me?" she asked, barely audible. "I don't even recognize you," I responded. She covered her face with her hands, and I watched as she cried. Then I stood up. "You said what you needed to say, so did I." With that, I walked out of the cafe, leaving her behind with her tears, her wedding ring, and the wreckage she created herself. Grief doesn't strike all at once. It seeps. After the cafe encounter, I didn't experience a sense of lightness or freedom. Instead, it felt as if someone had removed a mask from a phantom I'd been cohabiting with, revealing nothing but an empty resonance of something I once cherished. Emily didn't reach out immediately. She discarded her final message and watched it dissolve in her grasp. The ring, the cafe's tears, the confessions, they were never intended for me. They were tools to assuage her guilt, narrate her tale, and alleviate her distress. Yet I began to reclaim my authentic self. Surprisingly, the recovery process seemed mundane. I didn't engage in thrilling adventures or introspective writing or yoga. Instead, I became more aware of my surroundings. The tranquility of my apartment no longer felt like a penalty. The morning coffee began to taste robust once more. Upon waking for the first time in months, I no longer immediately thought of her, and then unexpectedly, one afternoon, I encountered her again. Wait-biding at a car wash, I found myself behind a silver Toyota when I spotted her several rows ahead, lounging on the hood of James's BMW. Unaware of my presence, she amused herself with something on his phone, sipping an iced beverage. For a brief instant, I merely observed her. Not from desire, but out of interest. It was as if watching someone who had forgotten they had ever tried out for the part they were now playing. James seemed altered too, more rigid, less self-assured, as though he was becoming aware that fictitious women eventually transform into real ones, and the latter often bring complications. I chose not to signal or react. Instead, I left. That evening, she once again punctuated the quiet. "Emily, recognized you today. No more than a glance, no inquiry, no response from me." Soon after, another message arrived. "I'm still contemplating us, our past." However, I didn't reply. There was no need, as our connection dissolved the moment she deemed someone else worthy of deceiving me. That evening, I slept soundly from dusk till dawn, a rarity due to her predicament. It was on a Thursday afternoon when Melissa, Emily's college confidant, called me unexpectedly. Her name flashed on my screen like an unanticipated apparition. I hesitated before answering, knowing she wasn't someone I wished to hear from. "Melissa?" I said, after allowing the phone to ring twice. "Derek?" she replied, her voice echoing regret. She admitted that Emily wasn't in a good state, consuming alcohol excessively, barely attending work, and constantly talking about me as if we still had time to rectify things. I remained silent, absorbing her words before uttering, "Emily?" My hand gripped the phone tightly at her revelation. She was spiraling out of control. "Why did you tell me?" I queried, as I hadn't realized it was that way. I sensed James was in turmoil, but assumed it was just an emotional matter initially. I didn't think she would actually— "You aided her in deceit," I stated bluntly. Another moment of silence passed. "Yes," she acknowledged. There was a hint of remorse, or perhaps fear in her tone, fear of being entangled in the destruction she helped create. "She is no longer your concern," Melissa stated. "However, I thought you should learn about it, from someone who seeks nothing from you." I thanked her, and I truly meant it. But I ended the call with a heavy feeling in my chest, for despite everything, a petty, resentful part of me still yearned for her to bear the burden. Emily isn't made for remorse. She's designed for reinvention. If remorse had finally found her, it meant the facade was cracking, but I wouldn't be the one to catch her when she fell. That night, I embarked on a lengthy walk. No specific destination, just sneakers, pavement, and time. I walked past our old bookstore, a place we frequented together, without feeling the urge to enter or experiencing a strong pull of nostalgia. Then came another message, not from Emily this time. "James, I think we've both been deceived." My steps halted, my jaw clenched tight. He had no business meddling in a tale he contributed to, yet there he was, intruding upon a sorrow he helped orchestrate. I chose not to respond, but he persisted with another. "I'm leaving. Thought you should know. That's all." With that, the illusion she sacrificed everything for disintegrated. She lost him, and earlier, me too. In that moment, I was no longer enraged, but instead felt depleted. When the haze clears, there's no climactic conclusion, no symphonic crescendo, no final cry. Instead, a subtle, sobering awareness sets in. What once seemed vital to your existence now is merely an occurrence in your history. After receiving James's message, I anticipated another from her, another effort to rewrite the narrative. For several days, there was no contact. Then, on Sunday evening, there was a knock on my door without any prior message. 3 firm knocks, nothing more. I didn't need to peer through the peephole to know who it was. It was her, Emily. She stood before me, devoid of makeup, her hair pulled back, wearing an oversized coat. Not the woman who walked out on me, nor the one James fell for. Simply, Emily. Vulnerable and genuine. I remained silent for a while, my eyes red, lips quivering. I didn't speak either. I wasn't going to extend a lifeline if she hadn't brought one herself. Finally, she sighed. "He's dead." I nodded, understanding her words. She looked away, then back at me. He was not what I imagined. Nothing was. "Yes," I said. "I could have warned you of that." Closer she came, barely whispering. "I have no one else, Derek." I gazed at her, and then came the line I'll never forget. I thought if I shattered everything, it would make me feel reborn again. Now I stand amidst the ruins. All that remains is dust. I had trusted her, not out of desire, but because it resonated as truth, a painful, harsh truth. Yet trusting her didn't bind me to her, so I expressed what I had held within for weeks. "Emily, you didn't just burn the house. You doused it with gasoline, gave me the match, and then cried over the smoke." Her eyes blinked rapidly, as if holding back from shattering. "I want to mend this," she murmured. "No," I responded. "You wish to revert it." Tears formed in her eyes. I didn't console her, not out of malice, but because my mourning was complete. Meanwhile, she lived in denial, dreaming a new life could sprout from deceit, while I had already laid the old one to rest. She retrieved something from her pocket, her wedding ring. "I've kept this with me every day," she said, "even after you departed." I gazed at it. It failed to stir me. It didn't hurt. It was merely a remnant of a war I had already overcome. "Emily," I whispered, "you could keep it if you wished. You lost it the instant you concluded I wasn't enough for you." She gave a single solemn nod, acknowledging the truth. She set the ring on the porch railing and walked away without a farewell or a request for another opportunity. I chose not to watch her depart, as she had left before even knocking on the door this time. Some endings don't resound. They murmur softly and close with a quiet dignity, like an unfinished book you knew you had to complete. I let the ring lie on the porch railing for 3 days, choosing not to touch it. A light drizzle fell once, barely wetting the specks of dust on its gold band. On the third night, I retrieved it, placed it in a drawer, and closed the door. It wasn't out of nostalgia. It was a sign of closure. It no longer belonged outside. Analogous to a long-neglected room I had finally decluttered following years of avoiding what lay beneath the bed, James never corresponded again. I assumed whatever he discovered served as another means of escape. He would vanish too, most likely already seeking someone else. However, I commenced living. I don't mean I scaled a mountain or encountered divinity or entered into new relationships. Instead, it was a subtle, gradual, deliberate transition. I began reading in the evenings, resumed running again, re-established connections with friends I had deserted during our marriage, not because she demanded it, but because I allowed myself to become engulfed by her pull. That wouldn't happen again. One afternoon, as I walked past the old hardware store we frequented while renovating the kitchen, an elderly couple was engaged in a heated debate about tile choices. Remarkably, he remained composed. She, on the other hand, was fiery. He continued to smile as she brandished a tile sample board like a weapon. I smiled too, not because I yearned for that type of affection, but because I now grasped its essence. It wasn't about the tiles. The essence was about staying committed, in disputes, at home, with commitments, and not fleeing into someone else's arms whenever there were signs of trouble. Betrayal doesn't annihilate love. Instead, it uncovers what wasn't truly love. Emily was not a monster, but she was a coward. Perhaps in another life, with different decisions, she could have stayed, battled, and grown. However, she chose not to. She wasn't grieving that version of herself. The true sorrow wasn't that she departed. It was that she never truly appeared. I chanced upon her the last time, unintentionally in the late afternoon outside a bookstore. She had a second-hand book and a grocery bag under her arm. No BMW, no ring, no James. Only her, longer hair, no makeup. She didn't recognize me, and I didn't summon her, not because I detested her, but because I no longer required anything from her. Closure is an odd concept. The situation is often perceived as a concluding discussion, but the essence lies in apathy. It's about not looking back, not reminiscing about the kiss, the messages, or the sleepless nights questioning if her phone was lit up for someone else. It's about moving on without realizing when the burden you carried fell off your shoulders and faded into dust behind you. I didn't reach out. She never did either again. The documents were settled, accounts closed, house sold, our names disentangled from everything that once linked them. Legally, emotionally, spiritually. People inquire if I'm dating. No, not at this moment. Not because of fear, but because I've learned to enjoy my own company again. Because I don't aim to fill voids, but to create something new. Gradually, deliberately, purposefully. And when the time comes, it will be with someone who remains when circumstances become challenging. One who doesn't merely promise eternity, but truly embodies it during prolonged silences, drab days, and weary bodies. When life seems more like chores than a cinematic adventure. If given another chance, I wouldn't alter a single moment. Not because it didn't wound me deeply, it came close to shattering me, but because it reshaped me into someone who can discern the distinction between being cherished and merely endured. Therefore, should you find this message, uncovered hidden conversations, or discovered a deceitful partner unflinchingly, refrain from pleading, shouting, or causing a spectacle. Instead, depart with your back straight, your gaze steady, and your spirit whole. Allow the liars to remain in the wreckage they've created, while you construct something they'll never be able to taint again.